Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks.
Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try to make your world a little weirder. I'm Nile.
And I'm Kyle. Yeah, Nile, could we...
Now I've heard you got something for me. What's going on?
Oh, I guess, hang on. Yeah, I guess I just was wondering if maybe we could, I don't know, do the podcast some other time. I've got a lot of gaming to get to.
Okay. Did you get that Tears of the Kingdom going?
No. I got the pre-release copy of Lord of the Rings Gollum.
Oh shit! Yeah.
So
okay. That's exciting.
I'm currently running through Mordor as a sick little pale freak.
Now I've
so
heard that they really went in deep on detail into like how you consume a raw live fish.
Yeah.
Now is that true?
That is true. One of the things that people don't seem to be bringing up in the details about this game is as you move, the physics is really incredible. Your little loincloth will sort of flap around in the wind very realistically, and it'll reveal your slimy, wet golem hog as you're sort of running around. Like you can see that on the character model, and it's just those attention to details that, I mean, that's why I'm saying, can we maybe postpone the podcast? I'd really like to get back to running around, eating fish, stealing rings, fucking with hobbitses, and letting my funny little dick hang in the wind.
I guess you did say it's kind of a slimy thing. So does that kind of work as like a location mechanic of you can follow the trail around that it leaves as it drags on the ground?
Yeah.
Or is that like how they do like fast travel is somehow involved with his dick? Is that what's going on here in Lord of the Rings Gollum?
Yeah, it's a very unique fast travel system in the game where you kind of determine your fast travel locations with the Gollum dick snail trail that gets left behind. So like, oh, I need to fast travel back to Hobbiton. Well, I've been letting my motherfucking thing drag on the ground since Hobbiton, so I can fast travel back to the first dribble of the
I love that you decided to go with the game developers decided to go with the fact that it's wet and slimy because okay, actually this is an interesting little I think this is a litmus. This is my version of a personality test.
Okay.
In the movies / your headcanon of Gollum, is Gollum wet or dry? Just on an average day.
I think he's wet.
Yeah.
I just think he's sort of like, you know, he's malnourished, but in like a way that like, in a really weird way. Like he's just like, I mean, like, look, he's in the thrall of the ring. And I just think that like, he seems almost like the curse of the ring is putting him through just like constant hell of all kinds.
So is he like in a full body flop sweat situation?
Yeah, all the time, which I kind of like, I guess I kind of relate to that because I actually had to go to Texas recently and the humidity, I would step outside and instantly be covered in sweat. So,
yeah,
but I imagine
you were just walking around
life.
Texas. You were walking around Texas just saying, man, I'm feeling like a real golem right now.
Yeah, and I had my dick hanging out and I was sort of leaving slime everywhere and I could kind of teleport back and forth between those. So the slime mechanic is like they were trying to really get to the realism, like have it be very realistic in the video game.
They only added that in it's like how George Lucas has gone back and added like CGI
Yes.
to the Star Wars movies. In recent re-releases of the Lord of the Rings
Peter
extended
Jackson.
editions, they went back and added Gollum's slime
Yeah,
trail.
Peter Jackson is going back and adding all kinds of shit. He had to move some rocks around in one scene.
Yeah.
They added like a bantha in another scene. And like they go and meet the army of the dead, and like he added a couple more soldiers. It's all kinds of fun stuff like that that really like it adds to the universe, you know?
I'm just imagining there are those sites that like chronicle like physical media releases and like different cuts of movies and stuff, and like give you very like intense scene by scene breakdowns of every change made between like different releases of the movie Heat or whatever.
Yes.
I'm just imagining them going through and like pointing out all of the times when Gollum's fucking wiener snail trail is visible on screen and was added for the new editions.
The Gollum slime wiener timeline.
Jesus Christ.
So that's the energy I'm bringing.
Yeah, maybe that's a Mandela effect thing. Like, are you from the slime trail universe or are you not?
Slime wiener
Are you from the
universe?
Wet Gollum universe?
Or the Dry Gollum?
Because I thought I grew up in the Dry Gollum universe.
No,
but,
I must have grown up in the Wet Gollum universe. So that we now finally have that one thing that we can point to that says like we're from two Mandela universes. Like we've thought about it in the past now, but now we know.
Yeah. So Kyle, today we're not going to be talking about the Mandela effect.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
But I do have a topic for you that I'm pretty excited about. Today, Kyle, we're going to dig back into some flat Earth stuff, but specifically where the origins of modern flat Earth theory came from.
Now, okay. I think I know a little bit about this, but I'm going to let you do the talking on this one. I'll be curious to see how much I know.
What if we did an episode one time where like you were like, okay, we're gonna do this week, and I could just go, yeah, I got it, and just take over. Like
that would be kind of honestly. We kind of did have that recently because when you were like, I'm going to talk about Nordics, like the tall white aliens, I was like, I think I know a lot of that. Now you did cover some stuff that I didn't know, so we haven't yet found that one episode where we could do that. But I imagine enough time passes, like maybe 10 years into this show, that will happen. I think.
Yeah, it is becoming harder and harder to truly be the fool in these episodes. Now, just to start off, I'm going to put a blanket thing at the top of this. A lot of the research on this I got from a book I'm currently reading that also you can find. The section on the specific thing we're talking about today is actually available online for free on the Daily Beast. But it was written by an author named Kelly Wheel, Weill. The book is called Off the Edge, which I forget the exact subtitle, but it's basically like conspiracy thinking and the flat Earth, like the history of flat Earth and stuff. It's a fucking fascinating book. I'm enjoying it heavily. I'm not through all of it yet, but it's something that I'm really enjoying.
That sounds cool.
And it literally, the intro starts by talking about Mad Mike Hughes.
Nice.
And then when you get into the first chapter, it digs into this, which is basically how the origins of modern flat Earth theory can be tied to a 19th century British Socialist commune.
Okay, interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. Now, Mad Mike Hughes, we covered him
for fucking ever ago,
a million years ago,
long
like
ago.
over 6 years ago. So I do recommend that episode.
For those that don't know, if you're a newer convert to the show, Mad Mike Hughes was a daredevil, an eccentric flat Earth believer. He would basically was trying to prove that the firmament was there and that the Earth was flat by building a rocket out of mostly like Craigslisted mobile home parts, and then blast himself up to the sky where he would be able to see like document the firmament.
Yeah, most
and he died. Like he died.
He hit the firmament and cracked his skull open and died.
No, between when we did the episode and now, Mad Mike Hughes has passed away.
Like most flat earther stuff, like I've seen videos, the fucking thing I'm talking about of like flat earthers like going around to places with this like debate me attitude, like trying to provoke just random people with like flat earth quote unquote facts and stuff. Like I've seen, and that's like, I feel like that's a significant amount of the flat earth, let's say, community. But Mad Mike Hughes was one of the only people, upon hearing his story, where I just kind of was like, well, let's see where he's going with this.
It's like, it's one of those things that you can't help but be kind of curious.
Yeah, like
he's
even
wrong,
though
you don't. Yeah, he's wrong. And Kyle, I'm so glad you brought up the whole debate me attitude, because that is going to factor into this. And I do believe that you can trace a lot of that ideals, like the ideals of modern flat Earth, to this. Now, we have done another flat Earth episode where I got into the like much more historic origins of the theory in general. That this stuff I'm talking about today did not invent the idea that the Earth was flat, but we're talking about the kind of origins of what is now the kind of modern playbook and belief system of flat Earth people.
Now, I'm sure you're gonna kind of expose some stuff here, but I sort of, one of the like narratives that I think is probably not actually true is flat earthers will tell you that the flat Earth is like an ancient idea that like scientists from over the course of the last 2,000 years in the past, like, subscribe to this belief. And I kind of was looking around, this was a while ago, and finding that's not really that true.
Kyle, I'm so glad you brought this up. Are you looking at my notes right now, or was that
for real?
That's where I start this episode, is basically is talking about that very concept and ahistorical ideal that that people were mostly convinced the Earth was flat until or like way back in history.
We did not. We had no communication about this episode prior to this, so I'm excited. You take over, because I'm sure you're going to have a lot better details.
So to start off, we as a human civilization have had the idea that Earth is a sphere for approximately 2,000 years at least. It is a thing that it's not been really heavily debated up until basically from like the beginning of CE up through like the 18. Well, actually, really, in earnest, like the 1950s, this wasn't a belief that a lot of people had. Like, the spherical Earth was the prevailing model. It was a thing that dates all the way back to Pythagoras in the 6th century, then through Aristotle and Eratosthenes and various other, prevailing minds of the Greek and Roman empires.
And Aristotle would be pre-CE.
Yeah, we're talking,
like,
this dates all the way back to the 6th century BC.
Oh my God. That's and like, I'm pretty sure what's also ancient is the very basic experiment with shadows in 2 different locations. To determine
that is
this, right? Like,
that is how Eratosthenes found the approximate size of the Earth, was by using shadows and the curve and like the sun in 2 different places. But keep in mind the whole like that experiment that you were kind of describing there, because we will talk about that later.
Okay, cool.
So then a lot of people will say, oh, the Dark Ages, that's where we went back to this thing. No, we didn't. Even though Christianity kind of did squash a lot of scientific advancement in that era, even 7th century Catholic monks and various scholars would write stuff that referenced the spherical nature of the world, even up to the point where Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy describes the Earth as a sphere, and that was not a controversial statement in the 1300s when that book was published.
Another thing that I think would be kind of nice to mention too is like, just because There are so many misconceptions about history. I'm sure I have a ton of them that desperately need to be corrected. But I was also reading a thing recently where it's like Dark Ages is almost a misnomer and has really conjured this idea in people's heads that the Dark Ages were just total, like, a plateau of progress and just a bad time to be alive. And I think that it's a little exaggerated, is my understanding.
Yes, it is.
And that, honestly, there's never been an amazing time to be alive. It's always been, let's put it this way. There's a lot of stuff going on all the time throughout the entirety of human history. And it's like, you can't really just condense it down to like, this age was bad, right? So.
No. And like, even like the quote unquote good times for civilization speeding up, like on the bonus show, I'm reading a whole thing about the history of civilization and how, cause it's the book, it's a Zecharia Sitchin book. So he's talking about the like quick, all of a sudden civilization basically sprung up in this really short amount of time. And there's this rapid thing when even that is like kind of selectively picking up facts and not full, like basically there is a pace towards progress throughout history and it has sped up and slowed down, but it is not nearly the levels that a lot of people would want to think. But if you want to get into the origins of modern flat Earth belief and why this whole crazy thing that we've supposedly known is not true for over like 2,600 years or whatever it is, you have to go back to the 19th century to an Owenite colony in England called the Manea Fen colony. Now, in this instance, when we say colony, we're not talking about the whole like Britain going to a foreign island and taking it over. We're talking basically a commune because what led to this whole thing was the societal discontent of especially Britain at that time is how this kind of came to be. There was a lot of kind of socialist belief springing up at that time, and the Owenites, which were disciples of a philosopher named, the socialist philosopher Robert Owen, brought forth the idea of a communitarian society, something that is basically, instead of having a large-scale government that runs an entire country, you live in communes with smaller social groups that take care of each other, and it's it's kind of a small-scale socialist utopia was the thought experiment that was happening, and this due to the economic downturn after the Napoleonic Wars, and like various riots and stuff, just a lot of societal unrest in the early 1800s, in the 1816 area, which is one of the biggest riots called the Little Port riots. Living conditions in Britain were bad. Like, just rioting was common, a lot of discontent. They added the quote unquote poor laws in 1834, which brought about a lot of like, basically workhouses for the poor, like in Charles Dickens stories where it's like, you're going to go to the poorhouse and like work your debt off and stuff. Yeah, that's the kind of vibe we're talking here. There was just like a lot of people were very pissed off at this kind of stuff, and it led to people looking for an alternative. So these socialist commune societies started to spring up around England.
And they were pissed off. Why?
Because the economy sucked and they were getting thrown in prison for being poor.
Okay. I mean,
I know. I can't do it. Fucking whiners,
Yeah, a little much, I think, but whatever.
Yeah. So this led to in 1838 the establishment of a colony known as Manea Fen, which is I believe the name of the area that it was located in. I'm not sure the name has any other real meaning. But it was established by a man named William Hodgson, who was a local farmer, used to be a sailor, and he also was a Methodist minister. He was living near what is now Christchurch in England, and he decided to basically try to get a group of people together that had similar beliefs in him. He was an Owenite, which is what they were called, these people that were into this kind of communitarian philosophy that Robert Owen was pushing at the time. And so he got a group of people together and set up his own version of a socialist utopian colony in 1838 at Manea Fen. And the it was established at this point. Basically, there was someone that was a part of the early groupings of this colony, the early kind of ruling people of this colony, the people that were setting it up, that really pushed for a specific location near this very long, flat, straight river called Old Bedford River. And this was not a good place to set up a colony. It didn't really have a lot of good agricultural soil and stuff. Like it was basically, this place sucked, except for the fact that it would be very good for one particular members who had a lot of power in the early part of this colony, and basically forced it to be there. So we are starting from not a good position here.
Typical socialists putting all the power in the hands of the government. Typical.
Yeah, I mean, this was like just like a group of people that were working to try to establish this thing, but there was, look, even other Owenite colonies said this one sucked.
I'm just saying that even if it's just 2 or 3 people that comprises a government, it's still a government. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, the group was founded on the idea that there were no social distinctions, no classes, no private property. There were freer sexual unions, joint childcare for the whole colony, and even for a time at the beginning of it, there was no money. However, that one didn't last very long. They had to start implementing a monetary system. They also, for some reason, basically wore like green Robin Hood tunics across the entire colony. That was just like their dress code. Even the women would wear like a green dress with green tunic under it. So that was just like a thing, I guess. Hodson was a very strict Owenite. That meant that he was very into technology and believed that advancements in technology could lead to a more equitable society for all people. And so he hit he kind of made this declaration at the beginning of the colony in their newsletter called The Working Bee, that his declaration was called I Will Endeavor, and it basically was the modus operandi for the whole community. Part of it was, the food will be cooked by a scientific apparatus, thus saving an immense labor to the females. Machinery, which has hitherto been for the benefit of the rich, will be adopted in the colony for lessening labor. A steam engine will be erected for thrashing and grinding corn, as well as steaming food for cattle and many other purposes. So he was really trying to make a technology-based socialist utopia in like a shitty marshland in Britain.
I'm already noticing some violence inherent in the system.
Look,
what was that thing about women in? What was that?
Oh, this is so the group. The supposedly it was equal rights for men and women in this colony, but basically he was saying we're going to cook using technology so that the women don't have to do all the cooking.
Right. So,
like, they still would probably be doing the cooking, but their labor would be lessened by the technology.
That's kind of what I'm understanding from that statement.
Look, we'll get into it later. There was like, they shot for the moon, but they did not have the they didn't have the baseline very well. Like there's some stuff we'll get into it. Like,
ladies, gentlemen, I am going to create the socialist utopia. Followers of Robert, we're gonna make this thing happen. It's gonna be a fucking utopia. Yes, the women's default position is mostly, like cooking and things like that. But that's natural. We all know that that's natural. Yes. So.
Yeah. Now look, supposedly when they started out, work days were pretty short. There were some good signs that this was kind of a nice change of pace for a lot of people because things worked out early on for a very short time. There were no women in leadership, despite the fact that this was supposedly an equal, a society based on equality.
Okay, again, I'm noticing
that's
a pattern.
A bug, not a feature.
Right. Okay.
So. Now, they did, even from the beginning, there were people from outside the colony that had to interact with them that were kind of not liking them because the colonies did not observe the Sabbath. and were branded infidels by a lot of people in the nearby towns and stuff. Yes.
Okay.
Now, this could be linked to the fact that there was no church on any of the maps or plans that have been discovered of the colony, which is a bit strange because Hodson was a Methodist and Christian beliefs were somewhat like they were represented in the colony. It wasn't a specific. I don't think the whole society was based on Christian belief systems. Like it was an Owenite colony, not a whatever else. But it is kind of strange that just didn't happen. So even though this thing started out pretty good, it was not going to last very long. In its entirety, this colony lasted from 1838 to 1841. So you have about a 3-year span here. But even by like the end of the 1939, there was some problems with the colony, specifically that the recruiting tactics for this colony were a little loose on finding people that actually believed in working for the good of each other and kind of worked with a lot of people who just kind of wanted to get drunk. And it led to a lot of people being described. Like there are letters that you can find from the Working Bee, which was their like newsletter thing, their newspaper, that described the layabouts around the town and everything. There was a lot of people who weren't really idealists that just wanted to not have to pay for anything, and it was a thing. And this led to the Hodson in 1840 to publish in the Working Bee that there's a new motto for the entire thing, which was "He who will not work, neither shall he eat." Which was basically just an ethos to be adopted by everyone, that we're not going to put up with people who don't contribute anymore.
You either work or you don't eat.
Yeah. And the other kind of downfall of a lot of this was that the people that they were courting to run this technological utopia didn't really know how to run any of the technology. So they Hodson was really into pushing technology as a way to progress society and everything and reach this socialist utopia. And then they recruited a bunch of people who wanted to get drunk and didn't know how to run machinery. And that is kind of a problem.
It's a little awkward. I'll say it.
So they also the people also didn't understand agriculture and shit, so they couldn't grow a lot of food very well.
Okay.
Basically, there just was this didn't work very well for long at all.
I'm noticing a lot of issues off the bat.
There's also this thing that I only found in one source that I was finding on archaeologists trying to dig into this colony, was there was supposedly some of the money made by this colony was through a tax loophole scam, where they lived on a marshy place where there was clay. So one of their kind of exports was clay bricks. But there was this tax law that taxed building materials and bricks and stuff pretty heavily. But if you sold them as quote unquote drainage materials, you avoided a lot of those taxes. Okay. And so they basically were running this scam of mislabeling their shit so they could sell it and keep more of the profit and pay less taxes. So there was just all of this shit happening.
There's a lot of shit that's fucked up.
We're not even to all of it yet. We haven't gotten to the sex scandal yet.
Can I just say, when you said that they had sort of a free sex thing going on, I knew, I didn't say anything. I could have spoken up. I knew that had to come in at a certain point.
Look, there's the idea of the freer sexual thing, I think, was something that appeared in other Owenite colonies as well. But as far as I can tell, it wasn't normal for them to outlaw marriage, which is something that they did in NAFN.
Okay, yeah.
And that was basically because they believed that marriage was an inherently patriarchal function that oppressed women.
There's a little bit of a...
Yeah, that's the thing. There is something... But it's like those people that are really good at saying whatever the social justice meme of the time is, but then don't have any of the backing philosophies and follow through. It's very performative, performative stuff going on here a little bit.
The fun. I don't know. It's just incredible that you can like be like, oh yeah, like we don't want patriarchal institutions, so we're banning marriage. But our default assumption about women is that they will handle the cooking. Like that's
and also
fucking crazy
like
to me.
kind of lead to like orgies and like there was that
Figured.
God, I don't. Okay, so this is kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but it's funny and related to what we're talking about here. For a long time, there wasn't a lot written about the Manea Fen colony. Over the last like 150 years since its downfall, it just kind of faded into the background. One of the earlier like reappraisals of this whole thing was a 2017 article at the Cambridgeshire Live entitled "Archaeologists Uncover Cambridgeshire's Long Lost Wife Swapping Colony." And like now it's become part of the like flat Earth origins discourse by way of I don't know if this book that I'm reading started that or if they're just this book is just one of the things that's putting more of it together in a consumable package. But this was they now are known for as a wife swapping colony and also the origins of modern flat Earth theory.
That's fucking insane. Do you think any of the other like colonies, like some people would like sneak away at night to hook up with a hot wife? Do you think that ever happened?
I don't know, because I think the freer sexual politics is a thing that was on other. I didn't do research into a lot of other Owenite colonies. I just know that even amongst the Owenite colonies, a lot of them were like, yeah, that one's kind of a shit show. Like they eventually started getting basically roasted by other Owenite colonies because of the marriage ban, to the point where, to try to cover their ass, a guy that we're going to talk far more about here in a minute, who was being blamed for a lot of these things, tried to write a letter to fucking Robert Owen himself saying, hey, just to clarify, we don't know which way we're supposed to go on this. Should marriage be allowed?
Oh my
and then
God,
was never responded to by Owen.
That is like, oh Jesus Christ! There's still this like appeal to. I don't even know what to.
Yeah, he tried to.
There's something
it's
fucking
like
weird going on.
It's like someone trying to write a letter to fucking Marx. Like it's this really weird. Yeah. It was such like a covering his ass thing. And that will lead us to the guy that did that. Now enters the main character of this story, one Samuel Robotham.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Samuel Robotham was a 22-year-old Owenite, socialite kind of guy. He was a real. The way that it's described in the book and in some of the other places I've seen is he was effectively you would find him at the like intellectual salons discussing politics, usually to some degree, at least at some points in his life, high on laughing gas, which I think was a thing at the time in the like young intelligentsia community.
Yeah.
And so he would just be like fucking blasted discussing socialism and everything with these other people, and he was a devout Owenite. But he also, more than anything, more than being an Owenite, he, from a supposed very early age, this is we only know when this started because of things he said later on in his life, so it could be apocryphal, but if you believe him, from the age of 9 he was a devout flat earther.
Go on.
He also was the one that pushed for the site of the colony because it would be helpful in his flat Earth research, and we'll get to that a little bit later.
Okay.
But Robotham claimed that he basically from birth believed that the Earth was flat, to the point where he got in trouble at school for protesting his teachers teaching a spherical Earth or a globular Earth kind of thing, where he straight up got like kicked out of class and left school at the age of 9.
How is this possible? This is exactly what those people are like today.
Yes, we have not even begun that part. This is such the template for a guy that we now are so annoyed with. This is the template.
Oh my God.
This is a quote from him. So from an early age, he believed in that the Newtonian model, which he was very well aware of. He knew this thing was out there and was the prevailing idea, but he was convinced that it was not true because, and I quote, "Again and again, the feeling came over me that as the Newtonian system appeared so plausible and so grand in its extent and comprehensiveness, it might after all be correct. And if so, there could be no heaven for man's future enjoyment, no higher existence than on this earth, no spiritual and immortal creatures, and therefore no God or creator. So, to sum that up, if the earth is spherical, there can be no God, he must be dead. And this guy really did not want God to be dead, therefore the earth has to be flat.
I don't know if I follow why that means God is dead.
Because in like the way that look, okay. In the spherical earth model, or in the flat earth model of the time, it was basically that like God, which one's which? Sorry, I researched a couple historical flat earth models, and I'm trying to remember which one was the prevailing one at the time. I believe it was that basically the flat earth existed on a liquid kind of like a sea almost. And it was floating there, and there wasn't a full-blown dome-based, like dome physical firmament. It was just basically like you went out and there were these other things stacked above it, I think. And so like if he basically is saying in the flat earth thing, there is a codified place that heaven is. Whereas in a spherical Earth, the Newtonian model, heaven isn't anywhere. There is no physical place for heaven to be that is above Earth, that God can be watching over Earth. So if the spherical Earth model is real and heaven is not, then God is not. And
Here's the
must
thing.
be quote unquote dead.
They are making up these flat Earth models from their fucking crackpot theories. Why not just actually be like, oh, let me actually recreate the globe Earth model with a heaven attached to it? Like, why not just do that? Like, why does it have to be flat? What in the logic? Like, it almost makes. Let me tell me if this is right. Like, it's almost like they're saying in this version that Earth is like almost like on this sort of planar surface. Mm-hmm. And that there are lower and upper planes, and heaven must be like some sort of upper plane. Is that about?
I believe so.
Right?
That is one of the models. Yes,
but there's no reason why you couldn't just have a second larger, globe encompassing the entirety of the Earth, so that would function the same way, essentially. So why specifically why the flat Earth? I'm sure you have an answer, or hopefully maybe you have an answer. Why the flat Earth model specifically? Like, why? What is the logic where it's like, well, it must be flat? I don't follow.
So there is kind of an answer for that, but it's because that the quote I just gave you was from a thing later on in Robotham's life. It's from one of his books, I believe. The answer is, I believe, kind of apocryphal to the time period. Like it comes in a little bit when we get into another thing that we're going to talk about. But so like for now, just hold on to that and we'll talk about it. But there is a philosophy that comes to pass with this group, or with the group that kind of spawns off of this, the Flat Earthers, that kind of explains that, I think.
It feels so wrong to call it philosophy.
I'm using it in a very lowercase p philosophy.
I know.
So yeah, he was at this point he was a part of the kind of socialist circles. He was running around in all of those kind of young political uprising kind of stuff. And he was, and a lot of times he was high on laughing gas. So
do you think that contributed to anything, the laughing gas? Or
look, it very well could have. This guy was a real fucking character. There's more stuff that we haven't got into yet, but he did pretty early on get involved with with William Hodgson, the guy that kind of started the Mini-FN colony. He was like basically this guy's second in command, and he was the secretary of the colony once it got established. So he had a position of power in the colony. He was also a part of like the earliest recruiting missions with Hodgson. Hodgson was like a straight up true believer kind of guy that just believed this was the way society should operate and was willing to sink every dollar he ever had into this thing, and was basically left penniless by this colony failing.
Oh, God.
And then Robotham was not as much of a true believer in this, at least, but he is a fucking true believer in Flat Earth, or at least seems to be from all accounts. So he basically had found this area where the river that this colony was based on was like a 6 mile stretch that was straight up just flat, like so flat. And this would be perfect for him to do his experiments where he could test and try to prove that the Earth is flat, because the whole idea of the spherical Earth in a 6 mile stretch, you should not be able to see things because they would have sunk under the curvature of the Earth by the end of that 6 mile stretch, basically.
Okay.
And so he's trying to use this to prove that is not true.
Right.
And that led to him having a series of flat Earth experiments in this river, Old Bedford River, which he for some reason calls a canal. I don't know if there was like a canal in there at some point or whatever it was, or just because it was this stretch, but whatever. You'll see him refer to it as a canal, but that's what he's talking about.
I can't fathom what experiments, because do you remember that documentary we watched about flat earthers and how it ended?
I swear you have my notes in front of you.
Oh shit. Well,
because that is specifically a thing I referenced. The ending of that documentary, which is called Over the Edge, I believe.
I think it's called Beyond the Curve, right?
Beyond the Curve. That's what it is. Thank you.
Over the Edge is the book you're reading, I think, right?
Off the Edge. Is
Off
the
the
book.
Edge. Off the Edge.
Beyond the Curve. Yeah. It's on Netflix. It's fascinating. We watched it for Fuck Your Documentary
a long time
years ago.
Yeah.
But they basically do this thing with a laser and these like sheets of paper hung from trees with these holes in them to try to shine the laser and see it through at the other end of this long stretch. And that is effectively the modern version of what is known as the Bedford Level experiment, which was a thing done by Robotham in between 1838 and 1870. He did 5 different experiments at this Old Bedford Lake that were effectively early versions of that specific experiment.
Holy shit. What? I just assumed he would have come up with something that is like affirming of his own belief. Like he wouldn't so how do you would
be just bear with me.
All right.
We'll get there, because it is not affirming to his belief, but he will try to sell to you that it is.
Yeah.
So the first one took place in 1838. There were a series of other ones throughout the time period. He only did like one of them while the colony existed, because it died out in 1841. And he was straight up like kicked out of the colony for the sexual scandal where they outlawed marriage. And then a bunch of people were like, hey, people are not being treated well here. And he had already pissed off people so much by choosing this location that sucked for a colony to be put in. And also he seemed to be kind of implicated in some of the like maybe sexual abuse stuff that was going on. I couldn't find a lot of detail on that. But he was basically either for good reason or scapegoated as the person responsible for the bad sexual politics of this colony, and was excommunicated from it in 1840. So he, luckily it didn't last much longer after that, and he was able to come back and keep doing his experiments over the next 30 years. So he basically the origin of this experiment were him basically wading into the lake or into the river with a telescope, and he would go down to where his sight line was basically on the surface of the river, and then look in a telescope, and supposedly was able to see every bit of a boat at the far end of the river 6 miles away. Now, he shouldn't be able, if the Earth is spherical, you should not be able to see these things beyond a 3 mile stretch. But he claimed to see them 6 miles away, therefore the Earth must be flat and not be curved. Now, this is impossible for the reasons I just explained, but he was dead set on it, and there is a kind of idea of why he had basically there was a kind of an optical illusion similar to a mirage that got generated due to like atmospheric conditions in this area that people think were why he saw what he claimed he saw, but other people just think, oh, he was straight up fucking lying. So you can take it as you wish. I forget the name of the specific effect, but it is straight up like there could be a scientific reason, but he also could just be a bald-faced liar.
I think I wasn't there, but this sounds like a bunch of hogwash to me, frankly.
Yeah. So he then started to publish papers, putting forth his whole flat Earth society thing, his whole not flat Earth society yet, but the ideas of flat Earth. And that started with an 1849 pamphlet entitled Zetetic Astronomy, which he wrote under a pseudonym that was Parallax. So he wrote as the name Parallax for a lot of his early flat Earth stuff before, I think, eventually publishing under his own name. He turned this, what I think was originally like a 16-page pamphlet. He then expanded it into his first book entitled Earth, Not a Globe, which proposed that the Earth is a flat disk centered around the North Pole and bounded along the southern edge, or the outside edge, I guess, by a wall of ice that was Antarctica. He claimed that the sun and moon were 3,000 miles above Earth and that the cosmos, quote unquote, were 3,100 miles above the Earth. He then also published a leaflet entitled The Inconsistency of Modern Astronomy and Its Opposition to the Scriptures, which is where he really leaned into a lot of the biblical reasoning for flat Earth.
These are all the
kind
hits.
Of his thing.
This is the same shit we have today.
Yeah, and this is a quote from that. It says, "The Bible, alongside our senses, supported the idea that the Earth was flat and immovable, and this essential truth should not be set aside for a system based solely on human conjecture." So the idea of zetetic astronomy started to become basically the early terminology linked to flat Earth, and a kind of rejection of established science in favor of your own demonstrable perception, I guess, which we'll get more into in just a second because, so colony shuts down 1841. He kept writing all this stuff, wasn't seeing a lot of growth in his ideals, but he eventually had some supporters, one of which was a man named John Hampden, who offered up a wager in a weekly scientific journal entitled Scientific Opinion. Now, Hampden was a follower of Robotham, and he was a self-described inventor and also the founder of what became known as Zeticism, which is straight up what we're talking about here. It is the codification of the I only believe what I can see and prove with my own eyes belief system that is just rampant in modern flat Earth theory, and that came from there are some places that claim that Robotham explicitly kind of helped found that, and other places that just say this follower of him was the founder of that idea. But Zeticism became that idea. It's based on a Greek word for I see, I touch, I whatever. It's this thing that is basically I only believe what I can see with my own eyes.
This is a thing that always kind of pisses me off. I hate the seeing is believing idea.
Yeah.
It's simply not true. Everything that our understanding of the world is effectively compromised by perception, not guaranteed by perception. There are so many, it's just very frustrating. You cannot perceive walking around fucking bumfuck England that the Earth is a globe. You just can't. That's just not how our perception works. It's
you can with some shadows and
sure.
shit, but that requires observing the scientific method, that is just antithetical.
You have to get closer to the truth. There has to be effort that's put in. There has to be work, and even then, if you're just ideologically also compromised and you're just full on kidding yourself, I think this guy must be, then any work you put in probably won't matter either. You have to be open to the idea that you could be wrong. So
yep. So remember where I said he put a wager into a scientific journal?
Okay. Yeah.
So Hampden did that, and he said he could prove the Earth was flat by repeating Robotham's experiment. And a naturalist and surveyor named Alfred Russel Wallace accepted the wager. I believe that different places call it either a $500 bet or a bet that was between $50 and $500. There was some monetary wager placed on this thing.
Great.
And so this kind of was where this is the first time someone went up to a person saying, debate me in this story. And they said, okay, sure. And even though they quote unquote won, everyone in society lost. So, and like, this is the, if you're one of those people that says, just, that everyone just have a reasonable debate and they can, everyone can be persuaded by facts, and they can't. Here is an early example of that is tantamount to what we deal with today, but possibly more civil, but only just. Because, so Wallace, because he was an actual surveyor and he knew physics, he knew the problems with the initial experiment and added basically a third pole, like a third point of reference in the middle of the 2 points right now, so that you could see that one is higher than the other one. And he also set the sight line further above the water to reduce the effects of atmospheric refraction, which is the thing I was trying to remember earlier. That's the atmospheric refraction is the kind of mirage-like effect that people blame if they're trying to take Robotham in good faith. That's what they claim he saw. And so they redid the experiment. Alfred Russel Wallace was awarded the winning side of the bet by the referee, John Henry Walsh, who was editor of a sports magazine that was brought in as like a neutral party for this whole thing. And then because of that, Hampton started to publish a pamphlet that alleges that Wallace had cheated and sued him for the winnings of the bet. And he also not only wrote the pamphlet, but he started to send postcards and letters to seemingly anybody who knew Wallace or might know Wallace, including wives, neighbors, co-workers, editors, publishers, and basically any scientific society he could get an address for, that were just libelous fucking slander of Wallace. And it led to a straight up it led to Hampton having jail time after being sued for libel by Wallace. This is the earliest time in history I've seen someone be sued for libel. Now, I'm sure there were earlier ones, but I don't read a lot of like historical case law. But this is straight up. He was in prison for threatening to kill Wallace and for libel.
Oh my God. Wow.
The same court then ruled that the wager had been invalid because Hampton retracted the bet, and there was this whole thing. But it basically, and then even on the other side of things, all of Wallace's peers were like, sure, you won the bet. Who gives a shit? You debated this idiot. And he was criticized by his peers for his quote unquote injudicious involvement in a bet to decide the most fundamental and established of scientific facts.
Maybe he needed a quick buck, like if
that is the thing. Like he supposedly he was, he was basically like, yeah, $500 sounds pretty good. I could use that for some stuff. And he ended up having to give the money back because Hampton retracted the bet when it looked like he was going to lose.
What?
But then, yeah. This became a fucking mess.
What is it about this conspiracy specifically that causes people to behave so indignantly? Like, I feel like these flat earth people, like they've situated themselves in this position where they're like convinced that they're the next major, they have the next scientific like major breakthrough. You know, like they set their world on it, ironically.
Well, see, the thing is, it's not just this new discovery. It's a new discovery that confirms ancient belief. So they get it both ways, where we've gotten this new information, but it confirms a thing that is older than the thing you believe, therefore it's better. It's this like return to tradition kind of mindset that is why it gets so caught up in a lot of like Christian ideologies. Yeah, it's fucked. Now there are a lot of atheists as well that are flat earthers. There's a whole other thing with that. But the Christian form of flat earthers really, really dig in on this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, Robotham started to, I think before all this stuff doesn't have like a explicit timeline. So I'm kind of doing it in like chunks of certain things happening, like timeline of events kind of things. Because Robotham, after leaving the colony and while he was writing these books and pamphlets and everything, also started to use public debates to get people to believe him, basically, where he was a charismatic speaker. He was basically seemingly amoral and had no problems really just fucking hoodwinking people, because eventually he literally becomes a snake oil salesman. No joke.
Oh my God.
He peddled in like cure-alls under a different pseudonym later on in his life. But he would get into these very public debates with scientists, including one with including Wallace and other people. And he started to create what he called the Zetetic Society. He established one in England, one in New York, and basically was shipping thousands of copies of his Zetetic astronomy book and pamphlet to those societies. And this was one of the early Flat Earth societies. Then in 1877, Hampton produced a book called A New Manual of Biblical Cosmography, which became another kind of landmark text in the field of biblical-based flat earthery. And more of these Zetetic societies started to get founded around the world, mainly in like Britain and in Europe and America. And they continued to just debate people and garner like public interest by being loud and annoying effectively.
This is I don't know. This one is like causing my, for some reason this one is like making my I feel a chill running down my spine hearing all this. It's because so terrible.
It's spread because someone who was willing to just say anything and was charismatic and quick-witted was going in and just taking unawares scientists who were used to like good faith argument and hadn't really been confronted with such anti-intellectual, anti-scientific, bad faith argument, and just showing how powerful that is. Like this is straight up like the playbook for QAnon. Like there's so like these ideas are not new. Like all of the stuff that is very anti-scientific, anti-intelligence, conspiracy theory nowadays is not new. It's been going on for a long time, and the playbook hasn't changed, and it continues to work because people don't recognize it soon enough. So Robotham also, in this time period, started to go by Dr. Samuel Burley. Now, did he get a document?
No.
Did he
No
get any
chance.
credibility? No. Because he would just basically sell people cure-alls and various life extenders of his own invention. And this led to him, between his public speaking, his cure-alls, all this stuff, led to him basically making a small fortune. He was a successful person who eventually died in 1884 with no ramifications for his actions.
Best thing he's done so far.
Yeah. Then the whole idea was picked up and taken on the next kind of big name in this lineage. There's a whole other side of this that I might do a separate episode on, where there's the whole idea of like a flat earth commune went over to America, and we'll talk about that in a different episode. But in this lineage, the next person to pick up the ball was someone named Lady Elizabeth Blount, who established the Universal Zetetic Society in 1893. The stated objective of this organization was the propagation of knowledge related to natural cosmogony in combination of the Holy Scriptures based on practical scientific investigation.
And let me guess, we went from a guy who's taking laughing gas and spouting off flat earth theories to a lady who's smoking fat blounts and spouting off flat earth conspiracy theory.
I don't know that for sure, but like she seems like a more like business minded person, because she starts to sell a magazine called The Earth Not a Globe Review, which remained active well into the 20th century. So like she was putting this flat earth journal out there for quite a while.
Jesus Christ.
She then, in 1901, between 1901 and 1904, she edited a journal called Earth, a monthly magazine of sense and science. And she held that the Bible was the unquestioned authority on the natural world, and that you could not be a Christian and believe in a globular Earth. There were she kind of spread her knowledge to other people. There was this whole kind of organization that grew out of it, but interest started to decline after the First World War. Basically, a thing that is really important to remember in this stuff is like when there's a lot of like prosperity and rah nationalism and stuff, like whenever times are quote unquote good, these beliefs don't spread as far. The susceptibility to a lot of these beliefs comes in times of when people are experiencing a downturn. So that like economic downturn after the Napoleonic Wars is where it started. It then tapered off during the First World War because that led to like the First World War like boom, But then as you progress throughout, history, anytime economics take a downturn, you start to get these belief systems much more in the public eye.
That's confusing. I don't remember that happening that much in our lifetime.
Yeah. And so this led to some other kind of organizations and people starting up. The next big one was in 1956. Samuel Shenton of Dover, United Kingdom, came across the former works of the Universalist Aesthetic Society and was hooked. He then established the International Flat Earth Research Society, which kind of mixed together some of the ideals of the Aesthetic Society before it and some other newer, like, kind of newer woo-woo stuff. And that was the first, like, actual straight-up just Flat Earth Society. This timing wasn't super good because in 1957 we launched Sputnik into orbit, but that didn't really cause him any troubles. He straight up was just like, he had all these like kind of witty rejoinders anytime someone would like, when asked about the Sputnik launch, he said, "Would sailing around the Isle of Wight prove that it was spherical? It is just the same for these satellites." And then when pictures of Earth were taken from space, clearly showing the spherical nature of the Earth, funnily enough, he had a response to that too. "It is easy to see how a photograph like that could fool the untrained eye."
Oh,
what does that sound like?
Oh, fuck me. It's the same shit. Oh my God.
And this is the like this society dealing with the advent of space travel it's like I'm reading modern flat earthers.
It's disturbing.
Really, yeah. So that is the way that a 19th century British socialist commune led to the rise of modern flat earth theory.
Oh my God. That I didn't know the story. I knew, the sort of ideas that were being put forth by these people. I didn't know this is, can I say, I don't know why, but this feels especially disheartening today. I don't know what it is.
I literally, I was just reading all this stuff and like, I read the book chapter on this guy and I was like, this is just fucking unhinged. I'm surprised I didn't come across it when I was doing my first Flat Earth episode, but I straight up think the time between when I did the first Flat Earth episode for us and this book being published and like the articles that led to it and everything, I think they happened since then, at least in part. So like this isn't like exactly new information, but it isn't it wasn't the most prevalent until recently.
Man, that's rough. It's like funny in a way, but it's also really painful because you would, I don't know, I have this thought in mind that like the debate me fucking utterly, just totally ignorant, aggressively ignorant. Like I picture the contemporary flat earther as being like a new thing. And that they're the exact same people.
It's the same
thing.
fucking playbook.
That's crazy.
Yep.
It hasn't evolved at all. Like it's the exact same thing. That's insane. That's really crazy. Wow.
So yeah. Oh yeah, that last guy is where it really went into. He brought in the there's a grand conspiracy that they're deceiving the public of this. Like that came from Shenton's organization in the 1950s. That was the twist that he added onto it after the initial stuff was this is real and it's a grand conspiracy specifically trying to keep you in the dark. Which I think is kind of crucial to a lot of people having that kind of uncovering feeling when they discover it. Like, I think that whole thing of like, you're pulling everyone else has the wool pulled over their eyes, but you figured it out. That is crucial to a lot of modern belief in this stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So archaeologists uncover Cambridgeshire's long lost wife swapping colony is just a great headline. That's we got to where it is actually in my notes, and I God, that's just a great.
That's incredible.
That article.
That is incredible. I'm at a loss. I was listening to a podcast recently, and I can't remember where this concept came from, or because I think it came from a book. But there is this. They were talking about how much more effective, an idea is to people if it's like being posited as like you're losing something, and you're effectively trying to fix that. So like in this case, like you're losing the truth of what our Earth truly is, and we have we're trying to show that you're at a loss because of this truth being hidden from you. Whereas the rational, less interesting side of things is like, you're gaining knowledge of like reality. Like basically the opposing view is just like on the one side you have gain versus loss, and like losing out on something has a much more powerful effect to like cause people to pay attention to the idea.
And to a further degree, it's not just that you're losing something; it's that something is being taken from you.
Right, taken. Yes,
which is like a twist that I think was the crucial addition of the IFERS.
Yeah.
Because once something is being stolen from you, then you have a moral requisite to correct that.
Yeah.
And
just like to something is being taken from you, and that's a much more alarming, attention grabbing idea than like by having this good knowledge we can have a better society, and you gain that. Yeah. Like it's like I don't know, it's more powerful, I guess.
So do you want to do a big question?
God, I guess.
Look, I think this one is one that you can okay. It can be light. It can be whatever.
Well, let's get into it.
So if you were to start publishing a bunch of quote unquote outsider ideas or content, and you wanted to pick a pseudonym to publish those things under, what is your pseudonym for publishing this shit going to be?
Dr. Jordan Peterson.
I mean that I feel like that would be pretty good for SEO.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Man, I don't know.
I'll start.
Yeah.
So I was thinking kind of the YouTuber thing where like you want to have kind of a catchy thing that you can kind of turn into a good Jesus Christ, where you take the first letter of each word. I can't think of the word right now. I've talked so much about bullshit.
An anagram?
Is that the
abbreviation?
Abbreviation.
Okay.
So I was thinking I would publish stuff because of my interests. I would publish under the name Some Dumb Guy, with dumb capitalized, DUMB, because I'm going to be posting all stuff about deep underground military bases. So I think SDG or Some Dumb Guy would be a good call sign for my Twitch channel, for my YouTube, all of that shit. And I can make t-shirts and really tell the world about the secret underground military bases under your feet, taking your jobs.
That one's airtight because nobody could like use it against you to make fun of you or anything.
Yeah, it's kind of self-deprecating. People like that, you know. Like I think that's a good point.
Oh fuck, I don't know what mine would be.
I realize that like the things where I'm like, come up with something from whole cloth instead of like this was a very open-ended question. Sometimes those are much harder. So, yeah,
I like your idea of like, I want like the sort of like unassuming, YouTube content creator. Blech. Sorry, I hate the word content.
It feels soulless and bad.
Yeah,
I'm kind of with you there.
But that is what I'm aiming at, right? Like that's the idea here. So I'd want one of those names, but I think it would be kind of cool to be like, you have one of those names, but then like once people are like, oh, that sounds like a person who just does that kind of YouTube video, I'm gonna check it out, and then you get in there and all the content is about like, the government has manufactured the UFO phenomenon as a cover up for like their secret dealings with like interdimensional beings or whatever, or something, or like it just a mass UFO cover up guy, but his name that he goes by online on Twitch, on YouTube, is like Hot Chicken Gaming.
Okay.
So like people are like, oh shit, I like gamer videos. Let's check out this guy Hot Chicken Gaming. Oh, this video is titled Dark Souls 3 playthrough part 1. I've been wanting to get into that game, and they click through it, and it's just Dark Souls 3 footage, but the guy's talking about UFO cover-ups the entire time.
Not to like blow the spot of long. This is conversations from long ago. Oh. But that wasn't that dissimilar from our initial pitch for what we were going to try to do on Twitch, where it was going to be like we would just be having discussions about conspiracy topics while playing video games, which is still not a bad idea. It just requires like you have to have enough stuff to talk about while also being like actively playing a game.
Yes. So one, I'm still 100% down to do that, and I could easily do that on certain topics. Just pick one and just go off about it. But what I'm saying here is this is not, for us, it would be we're talking about it as skeptics. This person
this is actually trying to
which like
the true believer version.
The thing is that I'm realizing that like this is just the logical next step in conspiracy YouTube videos, because like we've already done the sit in your truck and talking to your phone method. Mm-hmm. There's no reason why you as a oh god, I can't believe I'm saying this. There's no reason why you as a conspiracy theorist can't give us some entertaining content to look at while you're So like maybe you're playing the fucking I don't know what was that, like runner video, like phone app game, and you're streaming that. But you're also talking.
The current meme of like the runner game and also like someone cutting sand,
and then just talk about like, fucking hollow earth theory and like mean it.
Yeah.
That's, oh God.
This
probably exists, honestly.
It probably does. And like, and if not now, it just because you spoke it into existence, it will.
I know.
So, it maybe, don't do that. Don't try to indoctrinate children into flat Earth theory. By
too late. TikTok
streaming.
And Twitch and shit. That people are already doing that. Just slightly different. I mean, I've seen conspiracy TikTok. I've brought it up on this podcast. It is a depressing fucking state of affairs on there. Just the shit people are saying, and it's terrible. It's terrible. Oh God, it's bad. Anyways. That's the Hot Chicken Gamer idea from me.
Hot Chicken Gamer X some dumb guy crossover stream coming in 2024.
We should find a game that we can play together on Twitch and have both of those be our usernames while we talk about conspiracies while playing it on Twitch.
All right, we'll pencil that in. That's a good like really niche stupid project that we can work on. Yeah. All right. So you want to take care of some business?
I always want to take care of some business, Nile.
All right. So if you want to find us on various social media platforms, we're on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers, from Stitcher to Google Play to Apple Podcasts to Spotify If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird and we're probably there.
Twitch.tv/itgetsweird. If you want to see the hot chicken gamer and some dumb guy broadcast, we'll probably end up doing it there if we end up doing that. So give us a follow.
That sounds like a thing to do while playing Fortnite duos.
Definitely. So check it out on there. itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. I'm not going to ask for any emails this week. Feel free to email us fun stuff, but I don't want any Flat Earth emails. I'm already kind of depressed after this episode. I got to go lay down, I think, after this one. So no Flat Earth emails. Send us something cool. Send us something fun. Tell us your favorite. Tell us what your favorite sex position would be with Bigfoot. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $2 tier and a $5 tier. At the $2 tier, you get access to our show, It Gets Weird TV, where right now we're watching The X-Files Season 1, which has been a blast. Love The X-Files. And we discuss it on that show. And that show comes out every other week. At the $5 tier, you get access to It Gets Weird TV plus another bonus show that happens on the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV. Sometimes it's my show, sometimes it's Nile's, sometimes we watch a movie. And that means that at the $5 tier, you get access to a bonus show every single week. That is a lot of content. Plus, we have a huge back catalog that you'll have access to. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday. And you get access to the Discord where we're hanging out, chatting about stuff, all kinds of stuff. Sometimes it's about sex with Bigfoot. If that's your thing, check it out. We also have a $1 tier. It's just a tip. You don't get anything out of it. You're just saying, hey, I like your show. Here's a tip. Thanks for doing what you do. If you can't donate, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
Thank you all for listening. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Nile.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.
Peace.